we are up to week 13 in the National Football League. This season has flown by. We get 3 Thanksgiving Day games. The byes are over, so the odds makers and handicappers alike have a lot of work to do. Lots of football, everybody in action. Hope everybody had a great weekend. Let's have at it. Brian Blessing in Las Vegas. And we love Mondays because we start to look ahead and we go to the other side of the counter with one of the premier odds makers in the business, Jack, who helps us talk about the opening numbers. Hello, Jack. How was the weekend, sir?
It was good, Brian. Very good. And you must have enjoyed it with Buffalo winning.
Well, in fact, yeah, because we've got them playing on Thursday. That's kind of a microcosm game. At this time, if you crossed over college football to pro football, there's like a real motivational aspect. You got to look at schedules. Yeah, everybody wants to win every game. We get all that. But, teams that have backed themselves into a corner and need to be bowl eligible, you pay attention to that because there's extra motivation, extra urgency. And that may have just looked like a game, and we'll get into that game specifically, but use that game to bleed into 3 or 4 other games. Maybe Tennessee would be a good example, too, is, yeah, it's just a game. But, no, the reality is if they looked at their schedule coming up, I mean, that's like a must-win. So, we can secure our lot in life. Beat a team you should beat, and the rest will take care of itself because the grind of the schedule's coming up. And then a team like Tennessee, they control their destiny. I mean, they've got Houston coming up twice, and even though they kind of look pedestrian right now, watch out for the Titans because they're already playing playoff football. These guys are already looking ahead, and we have to too.
You're 100% right. It's just like people. You have your days at work. You're just going to get through it, and some days you say, I have to do a good job, and it's the same with teams.
Well, let's dive right in here. And Thanksgiving deal, I've got to give them credit because I do like this. I mean, we always pour Detroit. You'd love Detroit to have meaningful games on Thanksgiving Day, but the Detroit and the Dallas tradition. I will say this: the NFL got this one right, adding the night game. So, morning, noon, and night, we've got football on Thanksgiving Day. Thanksgiving Day is a fun day. What do you think about the handle on Thanksgiving Day, Jack? Is it a holiday and it's tough for people, or is everybody saddling up and diving, off the 10-meter platform to play these games because they are the focus of attention and people are home eating turkey and watching these games?
There's a noticeable increase, much like a Monday night game, a Sunday night game. The people are going to make some wagers on that day. And now they have it on to, okay, we'll start with an early game, and we'll probably press one way or the other, ahead or behind, and we'll just continue as the day goes along.
I would think, and we want to dive into the games here, but it is a very big day for the books because, A, they'll be crossing Chicago, Detroit into New Orleans, Atlanta, or Buffalo, Dallas, into New Orleans, Atlanta. They'll be doing these 3, tying them up into parlays, and there'll be a lot of people will take the game they like the best on Thursday to get a running head start and tie one of these games into parlays, get to the weekend, maybe even the Sunday night or the get-out Monday night game.
It's the beauty of the open spot parlay.
That sums it up. I mean, no, I mean, you just know that's where that action's going to come from. All right, let's get going. Chicago and Detroit. Chicago is a 1-point favorite. Total on the game is 38.5. Obviously, Stafford's out. Detroit's a different team. They lose to Washington, but a kick return basically is what did them in here. And Chicago, it was not pretty. They beat the Giants. The real rub here, Jack, was the total, the real thing you're looking at here, that both of these offenses, just significant question marks.
That's right. We opened this game, Chicago 1-41. Currently, we're at Chicago 1.5 and 38.5. I don't think there was much money driving it down. It was just more reaction to, as you said, these 2 offenses and the inadequate quarterback play. It's not that Driscoll, again, it's just what separates a good quarterback from a bad quarterback. He's going to make a throw into covered receivers many times, and it's just going to hurt his team.
All right.
Same thing with Trubisky.
It's funny. You better have extra coffee watching that one out of the gate. Then I think things do heat up. And this is a weird one for me, Jack. Buffalo is at Dallas. Dallas is laying 7. and we're seeing 44.5, 45. Give me your take on what the discussion was before the games this weekend, how you're looking to hang a number here.
Well, we had Dallas 8-45, and the general consensus was Dallas was a much better team than Buffalo. Now you have them going into England, no disgrace, losing by 4 points there. They're a 5-point underdog. They covered the spread. But it's more what Jerry Jones says after the game, the added pressure on the special teams unit, the head coaches. He loves to create controversy, much like many leaders these days. And Buffalo is just like a solid team. I actually think this number comes down to below 7. Allen's playing well the last few weeks. I wasn't really sold on him, but I can't knock his play the last few weeks. The defense has played tremendously, and I think there's no choice but to take 7 points with Buffalo.
Okay, so to that end, how much of this is perception, and it's Dallas in terms of that perception? Because I mean, I look at Dallas. They played 4 teams, Jack, with a winning record, and they've lost all 4. I mean, they've beaten the Giants, the Redskins, the Dolphins, the Giants again, beat the Lions on the road barely, but they've lost to the Patriots. I mean, their best win was they murdered the Eagles. I mean, the bottom line, they haven't beaten a team
right
with a winning record. And I don't know. It seems to me, is it more of a fade and a lack of respect on Buffalo, or is it overinflation and the public's love for the Cowboys that drives a number like this?
I think it's the public's love for Dallas. As I said, I think this game will go down. As you point out, I haven't beaten a team with a winning record, and Buffalo has a winning record. So all indicators are this has to go down. The only thing the house is going to sweat is Dallas on the teasers. Knock down that. Buffalo wins this game outright. It's going to be a big day for the house.
So, so somewhere along the way here, right? I mean, in the Buffalo-Dallas game and then the next one, New Orleans-Atlanta, tell us about what you were thinking with an opener here, side and total. But you're going to the books, believe me. I mean, and you have to think what the books need. I mean, it should be part of a thought process. I mean, you got to handicap the game. But somewhere in here, the house is going to need either Buffalo or Atlanta to get a W here. Because that will wipe out every teaser.
That's right.
And then the books are smiling. And at the end of the day, who usually wins? The house.
We need one of those two to happen. If they both happen, it's a tremendous day. One happens, it's a good day. But as you're saying, we owe New Orleans 5-48. Adjusted it to 6 after the Atlanta game. New Orleans didn't play that great against Carolina, but they did get the win. Atlanta had a real tough day against Tampa Bay. So the 5 was based on Atlanta's current play. Yesterday, we're going to deduct a point from them. So the game went to 6, and I think somebody laid it up to 6.5. I even see 7-dog money out there. The total went from 48 to 50, and I think it'll hang right there. That'll be the general thing, too. You'll have a lot more over money on these 3 games on Thanksgiving because the general fan wants to sit there and root for points.
And we'll get to the Tampa Bay game in a bit when they're off to Jacksonville. That's lower in the rotation. But to bring that game into this game in terms of how you're making a number, Breeze is back up and running. He and Michael Thomas are obviously an incredible 1-2 combo. But the defense that was holding down the fort for New Orleans in Breeze's absence has become a little bit more ordinary. But I'm curious, Atlanta stubs their toe after 2 great games for them off a bye. Is it more a chink in the armor of Atlanta, or should we be saying, hey, you know what? Tampa Bay's getting better. You have to decide which one is it.
Statistically, Tampa Bay is a little above 500 ball club with one exception. The turnovers that we talk about every week with Winston. He even had a couple yesterday. But they were, if you minimize it and keep it to 1 or 2, you're hanging in the game. And they're basically, talent-wise, they're a decent team. Good team offensively, all right defensively. And when he gets the days where there's 4 turnovers, you can't overcome that. But if you get 1 or 2 and he gives up 1 or 2, they can play with anybody.
All right, then we get to Sunday, Green Bay at the Giants. What do you do with Green Bay here? It's not like they didn't have motivation in that game and got absolutely taken to the woodshed. Is it a one-off, draw a line through it, Jack, or is there something there that the odds makers would dive into in terms of making the number this week?
San Francisco is just flat out a better team than Green Bay. 3 was a short number. San Francisco had struggled a little in the past few weeks, and I think the players read into that. And Green Bay, though, has not set the world on fire. Their offense the last few weeks has been, as you used the word before, very pedestrian. I think that describes it very well. Rodgers has not set the world on fire in the last couple of weeks. If you look at their offensive output since starting with last night, their last 4 games, 198 yards. Already against Carolina, whose defense is terrible, 388. 184 against the Chargers. 374 against Kansas City. It's below average right now.
The Giants are a weird team, I think, when we're sitting here looking at these matchups and numbers you're going to hang. When Jones replaced Manning, it was a shiny new toy, and the offense woke up a little bit, and they were banged up on defense. Then Barkley was out. The bottom line is, Jack, these guys just don't win football games. I mean, we think of these guys. I think people don't think of them as being that bad, but they're rapidly getting to that Cincinnati Redskins kind of mindset.
It was my impression Chicago did everything in the world to keep that game close yesterday. I really think the game should have been like a 2-touchdown win, and Chicago, just with their ineptness, kept the Giants in there. The Giants' offense is a little below average, especially in the turnover department with Jones, and their defense is abominable. But Green Bay's defense is nothing to brag about, and I just pointed out some of the woes they're having on offense. So this game opens 7.5 and 47. It's now 6.5 and 47, and I don't anticipate every time this game goes to 7. I think you're going to see the smart guys take it.
We move on to Washington and Carolina. What was the thought process before the weekend, and where are you now?
Carolina 9.5 and 41 was the opener. It's now 10 dog a little money and 40.5. Washington is a very bad team. They got the win yesterday against Detroit only because Detroit knows how to lose football games better than anybody else in the league. They've lost more close games over the last 2 or 3 years than any team I can remember. Now, Carolina, as I said, their defense has given it up. Allen has started to turn the ball over, which he didn't do in his first games after assuming the duties from Newton. So Washington is challenged offensively. Defensively, they do their best to hang in there. This game goes down below 10, but stays around 9.5, 9. And the total, Carolina's an over team, Washington's an under team, so I think we hang right around 41.
Let me just ask you the thought process specific to Haskins. Okay, the Redskins, they get a win. You wake up, you read the paper, see the score. Oh, okay, Washington beat a bad football team. They got a 98-yard kickoff return. Well, kickoff returns aren't even part of football anymore. Haskins, I mean, he's a kid. It's not his fault, but he's lost. And okay, now you're asking this kid to go on the road, and I know you go broke laying double digits in the NFL. This just strikes me as one of these games where guys in Carolina, it's one of those stat padding kind of days. But Haskins, home and away, I would think there should be a massive shift in the belief of what he is.
Oh, there is. He's had a terrible season. I don't see it improving. His net yards per attempt is 4.26, which is well below league average. Even Case Keenum was up around 6.16 when he was playing. So it's a big drop-off, and that puts a lot of pressure on the defense. And that's why they really can't score. Detroit gave that game away. Detroit was down there probably 4 or 5 times yesterday, came away with field goals, and they gave it the special teams. And when they had to make a stop against this inadequate quarterback, they couldn't do it. That's just the profile of the Detroit Lions.
I guess we can say it. I mean, there's a lot of football left to be played, but I guess the hype will come during the week. Oh, this is a possible Super Bowl preview. I guess it's possible. San Fran at Baltimore.
San Fran at Baltimore, and we put it up Saturday. It was Baltimore 4.5 and 46. Right now, the places that have it up have it anywhere between 3.5 and 4.5. We have the game down till after tonight's game. See what happens there. Make sure there's no big injuries or anything like that. I anticipate that number in the same area. Basically, the send out from the other people was preliminary line Baltimore 4 and 47.5. So Frisco looked good last night. We'll see how Baltimore looks tonight. And no matter what happens, it doesn't go higher than 5.5 and doesn't sink below 3.5.
There wasn't much to do in this, right, Jack? I mean, the one thing, they're both highly motivated. San Fran knows, as great as things look today, Seattle just keeps hanging around and is only a game back, and oh, by the way, holds the tiebreaker. So, the division is still in doubt for them, not for Baltimore. But Baltimore knows New England's finally going to be playing some tough teams here, and they hold the tiebreaker. They want home field advantage in the playoffs. So, both teams highly motivated.
Highly motivated, both very good teams, and 3 points for home field, and Baltimore is just a little better going into tonight's game.
Well, here we go. All the hard work Jack does, you got to throw the guy a bone. Tennessee and Indianapolis, what do we say? If it's an AFC South game, hang the home team 3 and get on to it. Go to the next game.
So you know what we did?
These aren't rocket science. I mean, it's nice. That entire division, Jack, you guys had the easiest thing going on for a decade. Baltimore, Pittsburgh, you just made the home team 3, and the visiting team would always win every year. And now, hey, here's 4 teams for the most part. I think Jacksonville may be falling off the map a little bit. But basically, the quality teams in this division hang the home team 3.
That's right. And that's what we opened it. Well, actually, we opened this one 3.5, which was a mistake because it went to 3, which is what it's supposed to do. So right now we have Indianapolis 3 and 43.5. Tennessee has played well the last few weeks. Ever since Tannehill took over, I didn't think that would be a marked difference in that team, but it has been. So we'll see what happens. Indianapolis has struggled the last few weeks. I know they lost by only 3 to Houston, but they were outgained and outplayed basically throughout the game. So if anything, I would anticipate a little Tennessee money, but probably not dipping below 3.
It doesn't seem like there's been that big a reaction, but let me just ask you personally, from a power rating perspective, what Tennessee was with Mariota and now what Tannehill's doing, because he's able to, he can do some plays with his feet, but Mariota could too. The difference was, Tannehill moves the chains, and the passing game is more than serviceable now, which means that Derrick Henry becomes a factor again. Well, it's not just this guy. It's what this guy does that impacts those around him. How much have you improved the rating on Tennessee? It doesn't appear that it's that much, but, I mean, to me, it's night and day different.
Well, I think the way it was trending is probably a 3-point difference. Okay. I think if you'd taken that last game that Mariota started, which was the Denver game, and he was so ineffective, he was better in his first and second year. He didn't progress. I don't know if that's due to injuries or something else, but Tannehill, even with the bad experiences in Miami, he seems to understand and grasp this offense better. And as you point out, Derrick Henry is breaking off at least one big run per game the way this is going right now. So everything is beneficial to Tennessee. And I would say if you said Mariota, if Tannehill got hurt in practice and Mariota was going to start this game would at least go to 5.
Let's make some money tonight.
For outstanding information and special offerings and promotions, we invite you and encourage you to sign up for our newsletter today simply by going to the website at betmaker.com. So, all right, let me ask you this. The NFL games, these things are going to be sitting up, but I can guarantee you what the reaction would be. Philly is at Miami. Okay. We know Miami's going to be catching points against whomever, wherever. But come Thursday evening, if the Bills pulled off an upset of Dallas, does that immediately have an impact on this game where Philly, just, oh my God, I mean, that's a gift from the gods, and we're right there with the chance to win the division. I mean, if Buffalo pulled off an upset, I would think Philly would be, high-fiving each other with turkey drumsticks.
Yeah, your point is well taken. And I think if that occurred, you wouldn't see this game is currently. So let's get this out of the way. Philadelphia is 9 and 46.5. Right now they're 8.5 and 46. If that were to occur, the game, I wouldn't go to 10 with the game, but I would go to 9 or 9.5, just on the premise that you stated.
On air, right? On air, because it's coming.
Yeah, they'd be more focused, more inspired to play this game than Miami would be. And so you say, okay, I'll take this. I'll take the lean. Not that this is going to occur, but that the public is going to perceive it the same way. And then I have an easier jump to 10 if they do.
Because you don't want to move something on air, but that's the beauty of what you guys do. And experience tells you something, that if you can do the preemptive strike, it's better for the house. But generally, you want money driving it. But if you know an army's going to be coming at you, you have to take that preemptive move.
Well, here's that. If we were, this would factor into it also. If we were sitting there after the Thursday game with Baltimore and Dallas and Buffalo and Dallas, and Buffalo pulls the upset, if I'm sitting there with a lot of money on Miami, I'll wait and take the hit. If I'm sitting there with a lot of money on Philly, I might go to 10. If I'm sitting there and there's nothing, I'm going to go to the 9.5 like we spoke about and have a new starting point. So you got to take all those variables into account.
All right, Jack, Oakland and Kansas City, I can be wrong with the best of them, but was just dead on all week. And I literally, on my radio show, I asked every sportsbook director, because for me, it wasn't any, indictment of Oakland. It was, you could have just plugged two different team names in that situation. And I said, I'm looking at Oakland going, that is the train wreck scenario. Seen it 1,000 times before. Life is good. Schedule's favorable. And then all of a sudden you're asked to fly cross country and play a game against a team that, if you're learning how to win and you're going to kick a door down, it's a team you got to beat. And the Jets are going to maul them. I said it all week long. And it's no indictment of Oakland. It was just one of those situational things that just sticks out like a sore thumb. And now it was a look-ahead spot to play Kansas City, and now all of a sudden, look at the number.
Every factor that you state is right, and I thought we had done our job. I thought basically that game could be 4 or 5, the Oakland game. Mm-hmm. Then we factored in everything, and we cut it down to 3.5. We thought we factored it in enough and cut it to 3.5. Then there was a race to take 3.5 on Monday for all the reasons you just stated. And then as the week wore on, actually, we ended up winning that game because there were a lot of people that went for the deflated number, just going off basic metrics, that Oakland should be more of a favorite. And they paid the price, and it ended up, it was not a big game for the house one way or the other, but every reason that you stated came into play there. Oakland looked out of sorts with, blame it on the time change, anything else, the look ahead, whatever you want, but the Jets played well. Oakland was there, and some people that I know and respect very much said the same thing as you, and for the same reasons, and they were all right.
Kansas City, we'll see. They're coming off a bye, and, it's been just a roller coaster ride for them. But I think this is a team clearly can right the ship and get things going. I think they got to shore things up defensively. But they have so many weapons, but Tyreek Hill specifically off a bye, that's a bit of the question mark here, right, Jack, if that hamstring was not serious. And he's only played a handful of games this year and makes a massive difference, even with the Hardman and Sammy Watkins and these guys. But there's just something different about them when Tyreek Hill plays. As a skill position player, not many are worth points. Should he be?
Yes, he should be, and yes, he is. And he played briefly. I think they could have had an easier time with it. And I think we pointed out, you pointed out especially many times in the preseason and early season, it's not just him, it's the double team, triple team attention that he has to get that opens the door for everything else, because they have quality receivers on the other side of the field, and one-on-one, Mahomes and any quality receiver have the best of it.
The next game is really curious. Tampa's at Jacksonville. Tell me what you were thinking going into the weekend and where we stand now, because I do think the case can be made. It's hard to trust Tampa Bay, but the case can be made the wrong team's favorite here. But what was the reaction to the weekend's games?
Well, Saturday, Jacksonville is posted at 3.5 and 49. Right now it is 1.5, and I do see some ones out there, and the total is still 49. I think you'll see this total go up a little. Tampa Bay, I think the public is slowly being enamored with them, and I think you could see this game go even lower. I think Tampa Bay is just a better team than Jacksonville at this point, and we were reacting from 3.5 to 1.5. Perhaps our reaction should have been more, and it probably will be straightened out in no time.
The funny thing is, and it's no love affair on Tampa Bay. This is more a fade on Jacksonville. And as you watch games, X's and O's and power ratings and how things all shake out, it is such a between the lines thing, Jack. And this was always the slippery slope with these guys. They've lost 3 in a row now. But when you watch them, they are reverting back to the stupidity of last year. You watch the Tennessee game. There were guys ready to, start a fight, get thrown out of the game. It's such an undisciplined hodgepodge. Jacksonville, to me, seems like they're driving off a cliff again. I mean, because they're nut bars.
You're right. And they were a dysfunctional team at the end of last year. As soon as they fell out of contention, there was disharmony all across the board. And it's the same thing this year. And you can't cite anyone else for that but Coach Doug Marrone. I mean, it's his responsibility to pull them together in good times and bad. And pulling together in good times is not a problem. But this move back to Foles, he hasn't been the answer for them. They said all they needed was to get a decent quarterback. Well, the quarterback play still may be a little lacking, but it's better than when Bortles was there, I believe. And they're still losing, and the defense isn't what it was 2 years ago.
All right, the next game. Listen, Cincinnati, the remaining games. Jets at Cleveland. Good luck. Host New England. At Miami and Cleveland at home. So they get Cleveland twice. There are opportunities there, but the clock's ticking pretty fast for Cincinnati to even win a football game in their host of the Jets here. What's the thought process on these guys? And did the Jets' performance throw this game above a key number?
Yes, it did. We opened this game 3-41, and as you pointed out, it went to 3.5. I think it'll go higher. Two teams going in opposite directions. The Jets the last few weeks have played adequately on offense. Their defense has been good most of the year. Now Cincinnati, their quarterback is doing his best to help them. Finley has played at best erratic, and Darno is playing a more solid game. The Jets are just a better team offensively and defensively. And I'm just mildly surprised. I thought we'd be talking about Miami with no wins, and we're talking about Cincinnati with 0.
Yeah, no doubt. All right, we get an NFC West game. The Rams at Arizona. Obviously, we have to pay attention to what goes on with the Rams and the Ravens, and I think we'll get more of a mindset for the Rams after this one because they got to win out. The other thing I think you got to watch is how teams play after they play Baltimore. Usually pretty physical games, and they expend a lot of energy. So, but the impending the result tonight, there could be an impact on this number first thing in the morning.
Certainly it could. We opened the Rams 4.5 and 47. It was bet down to 4 and 47 under a little money. It should be a tough game. We'll see what happens tonight. Either way, if the Rams come off a win, this number could go down for the letdown effect of beating Baltimore. And if they lose, this would be the opposite. If they lose, this one could go up because their backs will be to the wall. Arizona's a representative team, very bad defensively, but as I've talked about over these last few weeks, Murray at quarterback doesn't turn the ball over a lot, and that's essential to just hanging in a game.
Well, the funny thing is, not to beat this one, but real quick, the Rams' power rating has to have come way down. And as you watch Arizona, they're not winning a boatload of football games. If I'm an Arizona fan, I'd be pretty happy. This team shows up, they compete. You got a young quarterback who's showing signs of life, and the future looks pretty good. But the one thing we know is Arizona does indeed show up every week. The Rams' mindset's going to be maybe the determining factor here.
It will be, and that will be set by night. We just talked about. If they beat Baltimore, they're an underdog at home. They could have a letdown just from the euphoria of beating them and a short week. If they lose, it's going to be man up, and we can't do this anymore. But Murray has played much better than I thought he would as a rookie quarterback, and I think a lot of credit goes to his offensive coordinator.
AFC West game, it's a rematch. That's the Chargers and Denver. And, last time we saw Chargers, it's just this team, Phillip Rivers seems to be getting old right in front of our eyes. And in Denver, I think, they've got some significant challenges, and it didn't look pretty against Buffalo, but, that was a windy day against a good defense, so I wouldn't necessarily downgrade Denver for what happened to them. This is an interesting one.
It is. The Chargers were open to 1-point favorite. They still are at 1 minus 15, total 38 to 38.5. And the Chargers are, talent-wise, the Chargers are the better team. The question is, how are they going to finish? Are they going to finish the season? Will they continue to play hard? They've been basically in every game, and their record could be much better. I think the Chargers are a better team, and I think this game number goes up a little.
Two teams that are out of it, Cleveland and Pittsburgh. What was the thought here?
Cleveland, we opened Pittsburgh 3-dog money and 40.5. We've gone to Cleveland 1. But now the 3, which is probably equivalent to like 2.5, was based on Cleveland having more suspensions than Pittsburgh, and the fact that the fracas they had the last time they met, meeting so quickly, and with Pittsburgh losing the game might favor them. But the quarterback play for Pittsburgh has been so bad that their defense is doing their best to keep them in there, but they finally had to yank their quarterback yesterday and come in with the backup. And Cleveland at least knows who their quarterback is. So I think Cleveland, this game right now is currently Cleveland 1-40, and I think it could go to 2.5 on Cleveland.
The other weird, and there's nothing you can do about this. You're trying to get two-way action. It's hard to predict turnovers, probably even harder to predict penalties, but I bet you there's a lot of penalties in this game. Unless these guys decide to show up like church mice, I can't see that happening. These referees are going to ratchet this thing down so the police don't have to get on the field.
Right, I'm sure the league will give them directives. They'll probably send one of their best crews there to referee the game, and I'm sure they're going to have instructions to straighten it out early, but I still don't think they'll be able to control it.
New England's at Houston, Jack, and this is, again, the Patriots, they win. This defense has been spectacular. The crazy thing, two of their toughest games of the year, they won the game with a blocked punt. They won at Buffalo with a blocked punt for a touchdown. They blocked a punt against Dallas and basically had a touchdown handed to them. This New England offense is just, I don't know. It's crazy. Belichick, they find ways, and you got to give them all the credit in the world. But they are certainly flawed offensively. There's no getting around that.
They are. They're not a super team. They're winning some games that they probably shouldn't. And as you point out, their special teams and the defense are covering rather ordinary offense. I don't know if it's age on Brady, if it's the constant receiver, or the receivers being shuffled in and out. I know many receivers have been hurt for them, missing time. Whatever it is, we opened this game New England 4.5 and 44.5. It's now New England 3 minus 20, and that'll probably shrink a little. And the 44.5 is basically as high as you can go with New England for a total, because you don't know how many points they can put up. Now, Watson will be a great test for their defense on the road, and we'll see what happens. But I don't know if they'll get some phantom calls like that tripping on Dallas at the end of the game.
Well, they certainly get him at Foxborough. You kind of that stole my thunder, but at least what I was thinking about in terms of trying to figure out a total with this New England team, because the defense is just so doggone good, are you more inclined to say lower scoring games at Foxborough and you'd shade it up just a hair when they're on the road, because the home team maybe would have a little more, they don't have to deal with crowd noise? Would it be more of a lean to the over at home for the teams facing New England? Slightly.
Personally, I don't see that. I just see that every week they seem to bet New England over, and I think that may be a force of habit. When, if you even just go back a year, you knew New England was going to put up anywhere from 24 to 31 points. But now, without the special teams and the rest of that, you can't count on this team to put up 21. So now if they're scoring 21, 24 points, and you're a 3-point favorite, your total can't go much higher than 44.5.
And wrap it up with a really good game. Minnesota's at Seattle. It looks like a pretty easy one. In terms of you guys hanging it and let the market decide.
Right. We opened Seattle 2.5 and 49. Right now, there's 3-dog money. Seattle was the beneficiary of 5 turnovers yesterday, which will always make it for an easy day. Wilson, aside from that early touchdown pass, didn't really have one of his better days with a turnover or two, but they had the game in control most of the way. I think this will be a tough game. I think it could go back to 2.5, but there won't be much movement at all.
The funny thing is, if I was going to look at one and I get it, but based on the past result, the game at Philly, the weather, we know weather can be that way in Seattle. 49, I think it's a good total that you put up. It's funny, though. I can see this game being a track meet. Minnesota secondary is really just so. And I think if Thielen comes back, I can see these teams going up and down the field of nobody being able to stop each other.
Right. The Seattle defense is not what we're used to. And as you said, the Minnesota secondary is rather ordinary. And Russell Wilson and company make some very big plays. They pick up those big chunk of yardage and during one play. And I can see your point. Again, it's just the weather factor that's always a problem there.
It's that time of year. You got to take weather, motivation, everything into account. Great insight from Jack, what you're thinking in terms of getting these numbers up for us to have, Adam. Another busy week, Jack, and a lot of work for you down the road, buddy. No more buys.
You're right. So let's get at it.
Thanks, Jack. Have a great week.
Thank you.
Happy Thanksgiving, Jack.
Same to you and everybody over there.
Well, that's the Betmaker Show for now. We publish multiple times each week. We'd like to thank you for listening, and if you liked what you heard, please take a moment to leave a rating and review, or subscribe to our show feed, or share our show with a friend or two and help us grow the show. We very much appreciate it. Visit us on the web at betmaker.com, and reminder to sign up for the newsletter. Thanks to our engineer, Darren Vandermolen, and producer Mike Gallivan. The Betmaker Show is a production of Cardinal Marketing Incorporated. Betmaker is a registered trademark. Any rebroadcast, reproduction, or other use of this content without the express written consent of Cardinal Marketing Incorporated is strictly prohibited.
The handicapping and sports odds information contained on this podcast is for entertainment purposes only. Please confirm the wagering regulations in your jurisdiction, as they vary from state to state, province to province, and country to country. Using this information to contravene any law or statute is prohibited. The podcast is not associated with, nor is it endorsed by any professional or collegiate league, association, or team. This podcast does not target and is not intended for an audience under the age of 18. If you think that you have a gambling addiction, stop this podcast now and please seek help.
Gambling and betting on sports is a form of entertainment and should be about having a good time. But when done excessively, it may negatively affect other areas of a person's life, such as their physical and mental health, school or work performance, finances, and or interpersonal relationships. At betmaker.com and the Betmaker Show, we're concerned about the addiction that gambling may cause, and for this reason, we encourage everyone to practice responsible gambling. An approach to gambling that helps you ensure that it remains an enjoyable activity. Here are the main principles of responsible gambling. Don't think of gambling as a way to make money. Always gamble with money that you can afford to lose. Set limits and stick to them. Never chase losses. Don't gamble when you're depressed or upset, and create a healthy balance. Always be aware of how much time you spend gambling or thinking about gambling. And do not allow gambling to cause you to miss out on time with family and friends or time spent on other activities you enjoy. By following these guidelines, gambling can be a good time and great entertainment. If you feel at any time that your gambling is taking away from important areas of your life, is causing you stress or depression, or is leading to financial losses that are beyond your control, please reach out for help. Learn more at responsiblegambling.org.